South Africa is making its presence felt in geopolitics, with President Cyril Ramaphosa and International Relations Minister Dr. Naledi Pandor in the driver's seat. Many Western countries have tried to persuade South Africa to choose sides in the war between Russia and Ukraine. But the Ramaphosa administration refused to buckle under pressure and align itself with either the NATO-backed alliance or Russia. The country has rather followed the position chosen by late South African president and founder of our democracy, Nelson Mandela, that of engagement and mediation.
While some of our detractors prefer overt support for their political and ideological choices, we will not be drawn into a contest between global powers. Instead, our country strives to work with all countries for global peace and development. It is for this reason that South Africa is a member of the Non-Aligned Movement, a forum of some 120 countries that are not formally aligned with or against any major power bloc. Our decision not to align with any one of the global powers does not mean that we are neutral on matters of principle and national interest. Our non-aligned position exists alongside our active support for the struggles of the oppressed and marginalized people in different parts of the world.
The South African government refuted the allegations of ever giving weapons to Russia to assist it in its war with Ukraine, an ally of NATO and the United States of America. Ramaphosa and 6 other African nations embarked on a road to peace mission in Kyiv, Ukraine, and St. Petersburg, Russia, to meet Presidents Vladimir Zelensky and Vladimir Putin. The message was that the war must end through negotiations, hostages must be released along with women and children, and the Black Sea must be open for grain to flow to the world markets.
This war must be settled, and there should be peace through negotiations and diplomatic means. And we should, as we advance towards that peace, because all wars in the end do come to an end, and we believe that this war should be brought to an end as quickly as possible through negotiation and diplomatic means.
The African Peace Mission, led by Ramaphosa, presented a 10-point plan to the presidents in Kyiv and St. Petersburg, respectfully.
And we are essentially on a peace mission to try and promote peace between Russia and Ukraine in this conflict. We have some 7 points or 10 points that we would like to raise. Our proposal really revolves around 10 elements. The first, of course, is that we want to listen. We're here to listen, as we did listen yesterday to President Zelensky.
South Africa's decision not to align itself elicited a lot of criticism, not only internationally but also domestically, from the official opposition, the Democratic Alliance. The leader of the official opposition went as far as traveling to Ukraine, but President Ramaphosa held firm on the non-alignment position.
And we make this contribution with the greatest respect to both countries, respecting the positions that they have put forward, but also believing that there is a common position that can emerge, a position that can lead to peace. A number of proposals that have been put forward, we believe, lay a foundation for a peace to be found. And this is precisely what we would like to explore, so that all of us together can contribute to bringing this war to an end.
The Russian president told the African delegation that he has never refused to negotiate with Ukraine.
They rejected that. Where are the guarantees that they will not reject any other agreements that we might make? Even in these conditions, we have never rejected the idea of negotiating with them. It wasn't us, it was the leadership of Ukraine who said they would not negotiate with us. Moreover, the acting president of Ukraine signed a decree prohibiting to negotiate with Russia. I fully understand your concerns. I sympathize with them, and we are ready to consider all of your proposals, but we have never rejected the idea of negotiations. It was Ukraine who did it. They even issued a decree to that effect. What do they want from us?
Ukraine says the war with Russia has an adverse effect on its economy and with the blockade of the Black Sea by Russia. According to Ukraine, grain and maize are blocked from being exported to the global markets through this route. The lack of grain has also negatively impacted the African continent, and trading in the commodity has become difficult.
Russia unilaterally blocked our sea, the Black Sea and the Sea of Azov, and this has resulted in a deficit on your territory, in your countries, not in Europe, because in Europe we've continued our supply of grain and food products through railroads, and therefore even today we have increased the transit through Europe because the sea remains blocked, but we've increased the transit in order to bring all of this grain to the European ports and then to send it, all this grain, to you. We've talked about this.
Ramaphosa also addressed the alleged weaponization of the global SWIFT payment system after Russia was cut off due to the war with Ukraine. BRICS nations led by Russia and China started deliberating on a new currency that these nations can use to trade in order to move away from the American dollar. In France, the South African president had this message for his Brazilian counterpart, President Lula da Silva, on the currency question for the BRICS summit.
President Lula, don't worry, when we have the BRICS meeting, the issue of currency is top on the agenda. So we are going to discuss it.
On the global stage, Ramaphosa has spoken out on how Africa is being treated by the West on multinational platforms. He called for African nations to be treated as equals with those in the West and for the sovereignty of independent nations to be respected.
It will help us not to participate as unequal cousins in these institutions. It will help us to participate fully, and so that we don't have a sense that we are beggars, that we are being dealt with out of generosity. I think it's important in the new era that the world is in now that there should be a good measure of equality among sovereign nations.
During the COVID-19 period, as chairperson of the African Union, Ramaphosa said it was difficult to access vaccines for Africa. The president said African countries were treated like secondary global citizens, only deserving of a few vaccines, whilst people were dying.
But there have been times when we felt like we were beggars. I played a key role as chair of the African Union during the COVID period. We felt like we were beggars when it came to vaccine availability, when we felt we needed access to vaccines, and the Northern Hemisphere countries had bought all the vaccines in the world, and they were hogging them. And they didn't want to release them at the time when we needed them most. And we felt like we were begging. And at times it felt like they would just be droppings from the table, that yes, we will give you that and that. And let me tell you something that generated a lot of resentment. We resented that, and it got worse when we said we want to manufacture our own vaccines. And when we went to the WTO, there was a lot of resistance, enormous resistance. And we kept saying, what is more important, life or profits by your big pharmaceutical companies. And that too, I must tell you now, generated and deepened that disappointment and resentment on our part, because we felt like life in the Northern Hemisphere is much more important than life in the global South. And these are issues that need to be addressed.
The BRICS summit came to South Africa in August, and the president came to the fore, brokering a deal on the expansion of the BRICS bloc and to unite the global South. Argentina, Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates were added, causing BRICS to constitute 46% of the global population and 30% of the global GDP.
We have consensus on the first phase of this expansion process, and other phases will follow. We have decided to invite the Argentine Republic, the Arab Republic of Egypt, the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, the Islamic Republic of Iran, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates to become full members of BRICS. The membership will take effect from the 1st of January 2024.
The American dollar and the global finance payment systems such as SWIFT also came under the spotlight, and BRICS kick-started the process to look at the alternative use of other currencies.
We have noted that there is global momentum for the use of local currencies, alternative financial arrangements, and alternative payment systems. As BRICS, we are ready to explore opportunities for improving the stability, reliability, and fairness of the global financial architecture. In this regard, BRICS leaders have tasked their finance ministers and central bank governors, as appropriate, to consider the issue of local currencies, payment instruments, and platforms, and to report back to the BRICS leaders by the next summit.
Diplomatic relations between South Africa and Israel also soured, with Ramaphosa calling on the world to put pressure on Israel for the alleged war crimes against the people of Palestine in Gaza. The South African Parliament voted in favor of the closure of the Israeli embassy until the war with Hamas has ended.
We can see that a real crime, a war crime is underway. So there's a need for the whole world to rise and call upon the Israeli government to cease fire, to stop what is happening, and we want the ICC to investigate, and of course legal measures then need to be taken at that global level.
The president went further to accuse the Israeli government of being a law unto themselves.
And of course, the Israeli government has perfected the way in which it does not follow and implement decisions that are taken at the UN, at the Security Council, or in other world forums. They've become a law unto themselves internationally. And this is totally unacceptable. So we are once again calling for a ceasefire, and we're now saying that there needs to be follow-up by those international agencies that are supposed to ensure that there's a rule of law, there's order in the world. And the ICC is one of those. And the UN Security Council needs to also follow this matter up, because it's completely unacceptable that innocent people, in the way that it's been happening, where there's collective punishment that results in the deaths of so many people. It is unprecedented in the world, and it must stop.
The South African government has asked the International Criminal Court to investigate the government of Israel for suspected war crimes and genocide against the Palestinian people. Samkele Masego, SABC News, Johannesburg.